What's up, guys? So I thought I would do a quick one tonight. I was watching this debate with Charlie Kirk the other night on my stream, and he introduces this funny little paradox, which immediately set off the alarm bells in my head that something was seriously wrong with this, and I had to make a video about it. So he attempts to introduce a self-referential paradox, which if you don't know what that is, it basically arises when a statement refers to itself in a way that creates some kind of like a logical inconsistency. So the classic one is known as the liar's paradox, which just says this sentence is false. So if that statement is true, it's false, and if it's false, it's true. So it's one of those little mind fuck things. And this kind of goes back to ancient Greeks with Epimenides. There's one called the Cretan paradox. All Cretans are liars. And the guy that said that was a Cretan. So, there are these things called self-referential paradoxes. And so Charlie's going to try to introduce one of those. Let's go ahead and check this out.
Morphed into a really exaggerated expression of pushing for maximizing individual freedom. And I think that when you try and impose moral absolutism this way, it just inevitably causes pushback. And I think if you were to, as someone with a platform, instead say, hey, monogamy is great, it works best for most people, but I also understand there are some people it doesn't work so well for, more people would hear the message that you want to push.
Okay, thank you for that. That's an interesting. I've actually never gotten that question before. It's very thoughtful. Would you say you're against moral absolutism then?
Yes, I would.
Are you against that absolutely?
So this is this little paradox thing. So what's funny is he asks him, "Are you against moral absolutism?" Now, if I heard that, I would be like, "What do you mean? Am I against it?" And I would be looking for him to say like, "Do I believe in it?" Because he's trying to trick you into taking like the hard stance, like the opposite stance of moral absolutism, which is it makes his it's a little bit more difficult to defend, I would say. So I wouldn't do that. I would make him say, are you asking if I believe in it? Like what exactly are you asking when you ask if I'm against it? Because if a belief is the mental state of having been convinced that a proposition is true, right? It doesn't rise to the standard of knowledge. Knowledge being like a justified true belief. There are more advanced definitions of knowledge, of course. We'll do a video on that sometime. Don't need to get into that now. Justified true belief works for our purposes here. So it doesn't rise to that standard for most people, at least. So you would be able to say, well, okay, my beliefs, I believe this now. I could be convinced otherwise if you have sufficient evidence to the contrary. You can have a discussion about whatever. We can go from there. But the let me play it a little bit more for a second here.
No, I'm very open to having my mind changed, and
so he does find the correct response here. What are the correct responses, anyways?
So it's not an absolute thing.
Well, I'm against moral absolutism.
Are you against moral absolutism? Absolutely.
No.
So the funny thing is, this isn't actually a real self-referential paradox, really, because he's actually using an equivocation fallacy to help create the paradox. And so let me explain that. So basically, he's using absolutism and the word absolutely in two different senses. So in the first sense, he's using it in the sense of the philosophical concept of moral absolutism, which asserts that morality is not subjective or culturally determined, but is based on objective universal truths. What is considered morally right in one society must be morally right in all societies. And then in the other sense that he's using it is in this epistemic sense of like absolute certainty. Like, are you absolutely sure that your position is true? So it's two different senses, using it ambiguously to try to make his point in the argument, which is pretty kind cut and dry equivocation fallacy. Now, there are other ways that you can handle this, of course, not including the two that I've already mentioned. So Bertrand Russell, he came up with this paradox, the set of all sets that don't contain themselves or something like that. I think I said that right. But he came up with this idea that you can take language and put it into kind of like two categories, or possibly even more than that if you need to. But one category is the idea of like the object language level. And then the second idea is that of like the meta language level. So the object language level would be claims that you make about the world. These could be like, matters of fact, science claims, or it could be even moral claims, normative claims, judgments. So things like stealing is wrong, murder is wrong, whatever, right? Well, for the purposes of this would be like your normative ethic claims, like ethical claims. And then the second level is the meta-ethical or the meta-language level, which is claims made about the object level, or in this case, it would be a meta-ethical, since we're talking about ethics. So claims made about ethics itself, not individual moral judgments. So in the case that he's using here about moral absolutism, you are not making an absolute moral judgment in this statement, right? You're making a claim that you don't. Well, he says, are you against moral absolutism? That's why I would say I don't believe in moral absolutism. I would qualify it here. So you're not making an absolute moral claim. So his thing doesn't even work at all, really. Because if you're going to like the ethical claim level, like murder is wrong, then you can have your absolute. He can make his absolute moral claim there. Right. And then, but it doesn't, but at the meta ethical level, you're just you're giving a descriptive commentary about, your belief of the object level or the ethical level of claims. So, and if he's able to prove to you that your worldview is wrong, then it's all you've admitted to, if you follow my my way of thinking about it, is that you have all you've admitted to is that you have a belief that this is wrong, but you could be convinced otherwise. So if he's able to give sufficient information, then you can have your standard ethical debate or whatever, and you get around his paradox entirely. Hopefully I explained all of that pretty well. I think I did. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And please do like and subscribe. I'm going to be making lots of these types of videos.